In this video, I'm gonna show you the opening for white that is gonna help you crush everyone under 2000 ELO. You don't need to memorize tons of theory to play it well. It's gonna surprise your opponents since most players don't see it coming, and you can use it against almost anything they can play. What's up, chess player, and welcome to the Journey to Grandmaster, the place where you can improve every single aspect of your chess game. There are so many openings in chess. How do you choose the right one? How do you understand that it's gonna work for you? I love the opening that I want to recommend you today for several very important reasons. First, you can start playing it today. You don't need to memorize those ugly 20 moves variations where the moves are not logical. No, it's really easy to remember where your pieces should go because you know your end goal, and it's all like a holistic plan that you are playing from move number one. Second, it's not one of the most popular openings like the London opening or whatever you might be playing as white, so your opponent is not really expecting it, and it's going to be very difficult for him or her to understand what to do against it, especially in a blitz and rapid chess. And the third reason is probably the most important one. It's a very active opening that allows you to attack, to create threats against your opponent from the very first moves with a clear goal of just delivering a checkmate. It all starts with the move d4. I am a big fan of this move because it allows you to be much more flexible, and you don't need to learn as much theory as you need to against e4. Most players will answer with d5, so that's what we are gonna focus on, and we are following the game of Fabiano Caruana here with white, who played this opening. I mean, it's really a high-level opening, but you can use it in your own games without any significant opening preparation. So here, the most important thing is to understand the idea. Once you do that, well, all of the moves seem to be natural. Of course, you still follow the main opening principles here, and that's very important. There are some ugly, weird openings that I don't want you to try because they break those golden principles. Here, you fight for the center, then you focus on your development. But where do you put your pieces? That's the most important thing. So Tari, a very strong Grandmaster who played against Fabiano Caruana as black, played here knight f6, and he got checkmated in just 23 moves. Can you imagine that? An incredibly strong Grandmaster, 26-60, and Fabiano Caruana just destroyed him with this opening that you can learn today. So he plays e3. You don't want to place your bishop on f4 like in the London opening because, well, the bishop, I'm not sure what exactly it's doing there, but here this bishop is going to make a very important part in the game. e6. Black has, of course, different opportunities here, but you don't really care because in every case you put one of your bishops to d3 and then another one to b2. After c5, yeah, they can play knight c6, whatever, you don't really care that much. You want to place this bishop to d3 and this second one to b2, so it's very powerful along the long diagonal. But that's just first step of the process. Tari played here knight to c6. Of course, we castle because before going all in into the attack, we want to make sure that our king is secure. Never forget about that. Black played bishop to d6. Now bishop to b2, we are achieving our goal here. Black castles, so far so good. And now the key idea that we have is to place this knight on e5 in the center of the board where it's extremely powerful. I want you to remember this idea because it's a key one in the entire opening. First, we just develop our last minor piece. I really like this setup because first, it's easy to remember, and you make one move with every single one of your minor pieces before you make a second move with the same one. So everything is developed. Black plays b6, and now we do go knight to e5. We are creating a threat, but it's not that important. Important is we cement our knight in the center, and if our opponent attacks it more, like with queen to c7, and then he threatens to take it, well, we always play the move f4, and Fabiano Caruana played it here to support this knight. It's very stable in the center. Whenever he takes, we take it back. Well, we can even choose with which pawn we take. In either case, we are attacking there, the knight on f6. We are very active in the center. And now our goal is just to deliver the checkmate to this king. We need to bring our pieces to the king side, and let's see how Caruana managed to do that so that you can apply it in your own games. Black played rook c8. Of course, black's idea is to attack here on the queen side. You should always take into account what your opponent is doing. The plan is simple: play a6, b5, c4, and just destroy white here. Of course, we cannot really stop that. The only good thing we can do is to play a3. And frankly, I love to make this move earlier in the game because I want to stop this knight from coming to b4. Here it attacks the bishop on d3, and the bishop is the main piece for us to deliver a checkmate. So I don't want that happening. I play a3 pretty early on, but the way Fabiano played it is also possible. If black plays knight b4, you go back to e2, you never want to allow them to exchange it, and then next move you play a3, he has to go back, and then you place your bishop back to d3. So it's not a big deal. But if you can play a3 to stop it, then it's great. And now the biggest problem for black, it's really difficult somehow to find what to do, because this attack is really scary. You might think, okay, I'm going to attack here, but there is no king there to attack. So for you as white, psychologically, it's much simpler to play, and the moves are also pretty logical and pretty simple. So knight e7. Now you have a choice here. One plan is to play rook f3 and rook h3 and attack with the rook the h7 pawn. Or another plan is to play queen to f3 and then bring the queen to h7. To h3 to attack the h7 pawn. That's exactly what Fabiano did here, but of course you can try both, and depending on the situation, one or the other would be more effective. Here, queen to h3. In either case, you're putting enormous pressure, and already here there are some threats that black didn't actually realize. It was a rapid game, but it's a super Grandmaster playing as black, 26-60. I mean, I wish one day I will achieve that level, but it's like one of the best players in the world if you compare to the average players. And he played here b5, which is very consistent with what black wants to achieve. c4 is a huge threat, and yes, you might say it's a pawn sacrifice, but we don't want to take it. First, it's not really going into the direction of our plan. You see, all of our pieces are targeting the king side and the king itself, and bishop b5 is a move in a completely different direction. And secondly, tactically it works for black because he can just take it on d4, and once we take it back somehow, then the c2 pawn would be hanging, and black really becomes active and creates counterplay on the queen side. You should be careful with that and not allow that. After b5, black is just one move away from playing c4, kicking this bishop away from this key diagonal, threatening c3, forking two pieces, and basically winning the game. But here you have an incredible opportunity. If you're gonna find the right move and then the right variation, you're just winning here. So pause the video for a second, please, and find the best continuation for white. I hope you have taken your time. Remember what I told you about this bishop. It's on b2, it's standing there, always ready to jump right into the action. To achieve that, we need to take this pawn on c5. First of all, that is exactly the pawn that was most dangerous, and we are opening up this diagonal for the bishop. But why do we do that? There is a very, very concrete reason, and I hope you have found it. If not, again, feel free to pause the video for a second here. It's going to be extremely instructive for you to find the right move. Meanwhile, I'm going to reveal it to you. It's knight to c6 sacrifice, because we really want to open up this diagonal. Remember that this knight on f6 is the biggest defender, the most important one that black has in this position. If we get rid of it, we are threatening checkmate in one move. So we are just sacrificing that knight. Rook takes c6. And now we just take this knight on f6, and he has no way to take it back. Afterwards, queen takes h7 is a checkmate. Black played here h6, but the attack is still coming. Now we have two absolutely beautiful bishops. You see that black's counterplay is absolutely nothing. It's not helping, it's not dangerous, and we are just delivering a checkmate. How do we do that? This video is brought to you by Chestnut. Chestnut is making amazing chessboards that allow you to play online from a real 3D board. They have high quality chessboards, nice looking chess pieces, so that you can enjoy and having fun playing it. Chestnut boards also have so many training functions that I absolutely love to use to my training, and it helps me to improve my chess every day. This is, for example, Chestnut Evo I love to use it for my trainings, but they have so much to offer you depending on your preferences and your budget. And the best part is you can just use the promo code Journey to Grandmaster or click the link in the description to get a big discount on all of the Chestnut products. Well, we constantly create threats, we constantly put pressure on our opponent. That's the way we should play in such a position, but of course it's easier for us because we understand the key goal here to deliver a checkmate. So every single move we make should be focused around that goal. Black plays g6 not to get checkmated immediately, and now again we think how can we create a threat, how can we get to that king and deliver a checkmate. And that's what makes this opening so much better, because in the middle game you are not struggling to find the plan. For the most players, that's the biggest problem. Once the opening is over, they don't know what to do. But here we have a very direct plan. We want to checkmate our opponent. So Collie system is an absolutely fantastic opening in all aspects you might imagine. Queen h3. Well, Fabiano is just attacking that pawn. If you can take it, checkmate is coming. Black plays here h5, trying to, of course, stop that. And now Fabiano plays b4, which is a very tricky move. It's like asking this bishop in which direction you are gonna go. Because if you play bishop to b6, then you're still attacking this e3 pawn, but you're not protecting the knight on e7 anymore. And if you play bishop to d6, which is exactly what Black did here, then you're no longer attacking this pawn on e3. And Fabiano uses it by playing queen to h4, pinning this knight on e7, and going through again with the queen to deliver a checkmate, which is basically unstoppable. Black played rook e8, but queen to g5. How do you stop that queen? Black played queen to b6, trying to get some counterplay. Counterplay is so important in chess, but it's just too late, because white plays queen to h6, and the checkmate is coming. Knight f5, queen h8, game over. But how do you really implement this opening into your own games? Well, I have played here the Blitz game against a 2700 rated player on chess.com and completely crushed him using this exact plan. Let me show you how I did it. I played d4, he goes d5, exactly the same as Fabiano, knight f3, knight f6. The beauty of chess, like, you can literally learn the plan, understand the ideas behind it, and implement in your games, and you're gonna achieve the same result. So I'm playing e3. We are repeating the game of Fabiano here, bishop to d3 and c5, all the same moves, because those moves are logical for both sides here. I castle, he goes knight to c6, and I play b3, exactly the same thing. He goes bishop e7. You remember Black played bishop d6. In that game here, he played bishop e7. Absolutely no difference for you. The plan is still the same. I went bishop e2. He goes castles. I play here a3. Remember, I want to fix this, to control this b4 square, so the knight cannot jump there and attack my bishop. And after the move b6, I actually played knight to e5 immediately. Well, I could have started with knight e2, absolutely no problem with that. So my point is, even if you forget the exact sequence of moves, it's not that important. Main thing is you remember the key plan, which is giving a checkmate, and let's see how I managed to do it here. He plays bishop b7, and that's a very strong opponent. So if you are below 2000 ELO, well, it's going to be so much simpler for you to use the exact system to checkmate your opponent there. I play f4. I secure this knight, so whenever he takes, I'm gonna take probably with the f-pawn, so that I open up the f-rook, I kick away that knight, so if he takes, it's a present for you. He plays rook c8, preparing the same counterplay here. I play knight to d2, so we actually pretty much get the exact same position. He plays a6. Probably he prepares this play on the queen side, so I know I need to prepare my checkmating threads on the king side. So I'm playing queen f3, exactly as Fabiano. Unfortunately, in this particular case, it's not that great, as you might see from the notation, but that's the point. Even if not all of your moves are perfect, and that's why I wanted to show you this game. I have made a few mistakes, but because I knew the general plan, I knew the main strategic idea, it was so much simpler for me to play and so much more difficult for my opponents to deal with my threats. And a huge bonus that you get, especially in the blitz chess and in the rapid chess, You can play so much faster because you already know where all the pieces belongs, what your plan is, what you should play. You just need to calculate a little bit of tactical concrete variations, but you save so much time which you are gonna need later on in the middle game and in the end game if your opponent is gonna survive. So my opponent played here the move b5. Well, the reason why queen f3 in this particular case is not so great is that he can play c4 immediately, sacrificing his pawn, and then use this tension on the diagonal between the bishop and the rook to his advantage. The best variation here for white was this rook f3, rook h3, then it's not that dangerous against the bishop. So you can see both of those ideas are very powerful, you just need to choose which one is better in this particular case. But my opponent played the move b5, which seems very logical, like he wants again to play c4, and if he is gonna manage to do that, then he's going to be very successful. But of course, I remembered this game from Fabiano, so I just took the pawn on c5, he takes it, and then I'm doing the same, which wasn't that necessary in this case, because unfortunately my queen is still not on h3, that's the difference. So I could have waited with that takes, but anyway, I played here queen to h3, and I'm creating a huge threat of just taking the knight on f6 and delivering a checkmate. So my opponent plays g6, which is an inaccuracy. And it's so difficult for your opponent once you're gonna play the Collie system, because you constantly put pressure, you create threats, and he has to handle all of that. And on top of that, you do it very fast. Imagine how difficult it's going to be for black to play. I just play rook a to e1. I bring all of my pieces into the attack. That's always your dream, what you want to achieve. My opponent played here d4, trying to block my beautiful bishop on b2. But now I play b4 and attack his bishop. And again, just as Fabiano did, I ask him a question, which diagonal would you like to take? And he says, well, I don't want to go back, I just want to pick up your pawn here. I'm saying, okay, thank you very much for your bishop. I'm a big fan of having a pair of bishop advantage, because in such an open position, especially this bishop on b2 is huge. And that's exactly what happened. After takes, I'm playing rook e2. And even though for the engine this position is around equal, but from a practical perspective, try to understand what's going on here, how to play against this monster, how to stop the checkmate. And my opponents just blundered here in a few moves, even though he is 2700 rated on chess.com. He played knight h5, which is not a nice move, but he didn't want his knight to be constantly hanging there. I just took the pawn because why not? That's a pawn I can take, and now preparing some discover attacks against the queen. That is why he went queen c7. So you see that with every single move, I'm creating some threats, I'm putting some pressure on my opponent. That's always the best strategy you can use. And now I play g4, a very difficult move to handle, especially in a blitz game, because my opponent just attacked the pawn on f4, and now he takes it. But it doesn't work at all, as afterwards I'm playing queen to h6 with a double attack. I'm threatening to take the knight on f4 and deliver a checkmate in one move. And if you play e5 to defend it, then it's not gonna help. I'm gonna take with the rook, and still it's my free knight. You cannot take it because of checkmate. My opponent played f5, but now I'm just picking up the knight for free. And if you exchange the queens, of course, the endgame is completely winning. My opponent played queen e7, but then I go queen to e5, again delivering those very, very dangerous threats against the king. This bishop is unstoppable, and my opponent resigned here. So you see that even if you don't play a perfect game of chess, in most cases you wouldn't be able to do that, you still can outplay a very strong opponent. Why? Because you understand the plan, you know where the pieces belong, and you can execute this plan very fast, and in doing so you put so much pressure on your opponent, and eventually he collapses. I'm so excited to see your results with this incredible opening, the Collie system, and if you're wondering if there is such an opening for black, in this video I demonstrate you the only opening you will ever need to learn as black under 2000 ELO.